If you're thinking about downsizing in your 60s, there's a really good chance that you should not do it yet, or at least not until you answer a few critical questions first. Not because you're not ready emotionally, but because the timing could cost you $75,000 in Medicare premiums that you didn't even know existed. You can absolutely still downsize, and maybe you should, but before you touch a single box, before you call a realtor, we need to talk about the three phases of downsizing that no one is connected. In 2023, if you've watched some of my other videos, you know that my mom broke both of her ankles right after her husband passed. We had 1 week to get her from a three-bedroom place down to one and take all the stuff out to the dumpster. Rooms full of furniture just gone. Now, I should have been able to handle that moment, that week. It's process in my mind, but it was so much more than that. It was decision after decision, day after day, 100 bags worth of stuff taken out to Goodwill, to the dumpster, to the furniture that was in each of those rooms. I've led teams of hundreds while I was in uniform. I'm retired military, and I should have been able to handle it. But standing in her driveway, the emotions of the moment were too much. I'm a planner to a fault, and I couldn't understand as an adult child, like, how come this couldn't have been better planned? No one wanted us to be in that situation, but there we were. In the frustration, it was not about the stuff whatsoever. It was just the emotions of it because it was a lot. She wasn't able to move. I'm sitting there making decisions because of timing. And my sister, as compassionate as she was, I'm so thankful for her. She gave me a hug, and it was just the emotions came out. I didn't even know I had them. And that week of chaos, it could have been avoided with just a few months of preparation. That experience changed how I help families. I never want anyone to go through that if they don't have to. If you've been researching downsizing, though, you know, and you've probably read that the emotional challenges are there. You have guilt, you have memories, the family arguments, and that's important to work through, and you need to process those feelings. What I'm adding today is the other half of the equation, the life, wealth, and real estate framework. Think of it this way. The emotional experts, they're going to help you decide what to let go of. I'm going to help you decide when to move, how to structure it financially, and where the real estate fits into your overall transition strategy. So let's get into it. Thing number one that you must know before downsizing after 60, identify your specific trigger. Are you retiring? Are you an empty nester? Are there health changes? Each one creates a completely different timeline and strategy. I work with something called the 12 Ds of life transitions. You have diamonds, which is somebody getting married, diapers, having babies. Then you have diplomas, which could be career, and you have direction, deployments or PCSs, divorce, difficulties, death, downsizing, displacement, diversification if you're renting your homes out or you have an investment portfolio. Then you have dreams. And most people in their 60s are facing at least 2 or 3 of these at once. Retirement plus empty nest, health changes plus financial reassessment. Here's what I've observed working with dozens of families. The people who clearly identify which transition is driving the decision make better choices. The ones who say, we just feel like we should downsize, they often regret it 2 years later. So my suggestion is to hold on before you touch that first box. If you haven't named your specific transition, you're not ready to move yet. You're reacting, not strategizing. Take a week, write down every reason that you're considering this move, then circle that one that matters most. That's your North Star for every decision that follows. And then number 2, emotional preparation comes before financial decisions. You're going to feel guilt about getting rid of grandma's china, your own china. You think your kids want it, but they don't. Your spouse is going to want to keep every tool in the garage. Your kids, they don't want your stuff until you say you're selling it. And then suddenly they care. This is normal. This is human. And if you try to skip past these feelings and jump straight to logistics, you're going to make expensive mistakes. Here's where people get this wrong. They get it backwards. They start by calling a realtor. They get the house appraised, they start packing boxes, but they haven't processed that they're letting go of the place where they raise their kids. They haven't acknowledged that they're aging and that their needs are changing. They haven't had the hard conversations with family about what happens to mom's wedding dress or dad's military medals. So 2 months into the process, they shut down, or they fight with their spouse, or they keep so much stuff the new house is just as cluttered as the one before. Quick sidebar, if you're realizing downsizing is more complex than you thought, let's talk. I offer a free 30-minute transition strategy call where we identify which of the 12 Ds that you're facing. We're going to look at the financial implications before you list your house and then create a roadmap that protects your wealth and your sanity, most importantly. No pressure, just strategy. Link is in the description below. Okay, back to emotional prep. Give yourself permission to grieve what you're leaving behind. Have the family conversations early. Acknowledge that this is hard because it is. Then, and only then, start making financial decisions. Point 3, and this is the mistake that cost my mom. If you don't have 12 to 18 months to plan, you are rushing. She had 1 week, 100 bags to the dumpster plus furniture, items that mattered thrown away because we didn't have time to sort through them properly. That's what happens when you're in crisis mode instead of strategic mode. Now, here's what I've observed. The families who give themselves 12 to 18 months, they save money, they preserve what matters, and they actually enjoy the process. Why 12 to 18 months? Because when you break it down, that's how long it actually takes to coordinate with your CPA on the best timing to avoid capital gain spikes, to actually have planning in there, because those spikes, they could cost you $75,000 in Medicare IRMA. And recall that's income-related monthly adjustment amount premiums. And we'll talk about that in point 6. But before then, work with your real estate attorney to structure ownership properly if you're gifting the home or setting up trusts. Sort through belongings methodically, not in a panic. That way you keep what matters and donate what doesn't. And here's the thing, even if you could do it faster, why would you? This is one of the biggest financial and emotional transitions of your lifetime. It deserves time. If someone's telling you to move faster than that, a family member, a realtor, a buyer, ask yourself whose urgency you are serving, because it's probably not yours. Number 4, set boundaries and invite conversations, not debates. This is the conversation I have with every client. And I've worked with dozens of families where the husband, they want to keep every tool in the garage, and the wife is ready to Marie Kondo the entire house. Or the kids, they don't want your china until you say you're selling it. And then they have this complete meltdown. This pattern is so common, I could set my watch by it because it's family dynamics, it's human dynamics. So here's what works best. Set aside one sentimental box for each person. No judgment, no pressure. Your spouse gets to keep whatever fits in that box. His tools, his memorabilia, whatever, doesn't matter. You get the same. No negotiating. For adult children, give them 90 days. If you want grandma's china, come get it within 90 days. If not, we're selling it. We're donating it. Do whatever you want with it. Then follow through. No exceptions, no extensions, because here is what happens when you don't set boundaries. Your timeline gets hijacked by everyone else's emotions, and your downsizing stalls for 2 years. You were motivated, and then all of a sudden it comes to a halt. And that little voice in your head that says, what if I need this someday? I want you to ask yourself this. When was the last time you actually used it? If it's been more than 2 years, you don't need it. Stop arguing, start deciding. Okay, here's where this shifts from emotional to strategic. You've acknowledged what you're feeling. You've named your transition. You've given yourself time. Now let's talk about protecting what you've built financially. Because this next section, this is where I see people lose tens of thousands of dollars they didn't have to lose. All right, now we're in the wealth phase, and that's financial strategy. And the thing that I want you to remember, point number 5, capital gains tax planning. And here's a document that you need before you list your house that most people get after, and it could save you $50,000. Now, I'm not a CPA or a tax attorney. You always need to consult your tax professional for your specific situation. But here's what you need to understand. There's this section in the IRS code 121, and if you're married filing jointly, you can exclude up to $500,000 in capital gains when you sell your primary residence. That is a huge benefit, but only if you've lived there for 2 of the last 5 years. Here's where timing matters. Let's say you bought your house 20 years ago for $300,000. Now it's worth $800,000. That's a $500,000 gain, exactly what the exclusion limit allows for. But if the market keeps going up and you wait 3 more years, now it's worth $900,000. That's a $600,000 gain. You're paying capital gains taxes on that extra $100,000, roughly $24,000 in this case, and federal taxes alone, depending on your bracket. So the 5-year rule I teach clients, if you're thinking about downsizing, start planning early because that gives you time to coordinate with your CPA on the optimal year to sell based on your tax situation. Maybe you sell this year to maximize the exclusion. Maybe you wait because you're in the high income year and next year you'll be retired with lower income. Maybe you don't sell at all. You gift it to your kids and let them get the step up in basis when you pass. These are conversations to have with your CPA before you call a realtor, not after you're already under contract because that's too late. Number 6, and this is what nobody tells you, Medicare IRMA, income-related monthly adjustment amount. Here's what nobody tells you. If you're over 65 on Medicare, your Part B and Part D premiums are based on your modified adjusted gross income, MAGI, from 2 years ago, no less. Here's the trap. Let's say you sell your house in 2025 and you have a $300,000 capital gain that doesn't qualify for the full exclusion. Maybe you're single, maybe you didn't live there long enough, whatever. That $300,000 gain just spiked your MAGI, that modified adjusted gross income, for 2025, which means in 2027, when Medicare calculates your premiums, you could jump into the next highest IRMA bracket. The standard Medicare Part B premium right now is about $175 a month. But in the highest IRMA bracket, you're paying around $594 a month. That's an extra $5,000 a year for 2 years, no less. $10,000 in extra Medicare premiums just because you didn't coordinate the timing of your home sale. And here's the kicker. By year 3, you're back to the regular rate, but you can't get that $10,000 back. It's gone. Now, this next part could save you $50,000. This is why that 12 to 18-month timeline matters. You need to work with your CPA to model different scenarios. Maybe you sell half this year and half next year. Maybe you do a structured sale. Maybe you accelerate income in other ways to smooth out the spike. There's different ways to structure the sale of your home. I've seen families save $75,000 over 2 years just by coordinating the timing with their CPA before listing the house. Thing 7, estate planning coordination. And that document I mentioned earlier, this is it. Before you list your house, you need to sit down with your CPA and your estate attorney in the same room if possible. And you ask these questions. Should we even sell this house, or are there better options? Let me give you a real life example. I worked with a family, and let's just call them the Smith family, and they were buying a starter home for their daughter. They were going to buy it in her name, let her pay them back over time. But we brought in their CPA first. And the CPA suggested structuring the ownership slightly differently. Parents on title initially, daughter pays fair market rent. Strategic gifting strategy over 5 years, eventually transfer ownership. The tax savings there? $52,500, just because we coordinated with the CPA first and then executed the real estate transaction based on that strategy. Now, this wasn't about dodging taxes. This was about using legal structures the IRS already allows. but you have to know that they exist, especially with the great transfer of wealth that we're going through over the next 2 decades. 84 trillion passing down from baby boomers to the next generation. So you have to plan before you act, not after. And here are the questions to ask your real estate attorney. If we sell, does that trigger any estate planning concerns? Should we consider a qualified personal residence trust? What about gifting strategies or putting the home in a trust? Are there step-up basis considerations if we're near end of life? Should we keep the house and let our kids inherit it? These aren't yes or no questions. They're scenario planning questions, and you can't answer them alone. You need your CPA. I highly recommend your CPA and your attorney in the conversation. That's why I always say I'm a transition strategist first, real estate professional second, because if we execute real estate before optimizing the wealth, we're doing it backwards. Now, number 8, run a true cost analysis, not just the obvious costs. Most people think about moving costs. They budget maybe $3,500 to $8,300 for a long distance move. They think about the realtor commissions. But here's what they oftentimes forget: new home setup costs. You're going from 3,600 square feet to 1,800 square feet. And of course, I'm making that up. Who knows what your situation is? But your furniture doesn't fit. You need window treatments. You need to redo the layout. That's another 10 to 20,000 right there. Storage costs, if you can't part with everything immediately, you have to need to account for that. A 10 by 10 storage unit runs about $150 a month. Over 2 years, you're talking about $3,600 you're spending to store things that you don't use. The opportunity cost too. This is big. If you downsize and free up to $200,000 in home equity, but you just let it sit in a savings account earning 1% per year, you're losing maybe $8,000 a year in potential investment returns. Here's the flip side: lower property taxes, lower utilities, lower maintenance. Over 2 years, $3,600 that you're spending to store things that you're not going to use. That's an opportunity cost. If you downsize and free up $200,000 in home equity, but you just let it sit in a savings account earning 1% a year, you're losing maybe $8,000 a year in potential investment terms. If you downsize and free up $200,000 in home equity, but you just let it sit there in a bank account earning 1%, you are losing out on investment returns. Now, here's the flip side: lower property taxes, lower utilities, lower maintenance. In Colorado Springs, going from a $500,000 home to a $300,000 home, that could save you $1,500 in property taxes annually, but another $1,000 in utilities. That adds up. That's $2,500 a year in savings. Here's the point: don't just guess at this. Actually run the numbers with your CPA. I'll help you with it as well, but the final answer comes from them. The total cost of staying versus total cost of moving over those 5 years, actually run the numbers with your CPA. The total cost of staying versus the total cost of moving over 5 years. Then you're making decisions based on data, not assumptions. So at this point, you should be feeling more in control. You've got the financial strategy. You're understanding the concepts. Now let's talk the execution, the actual real estate decisions that you're going to make once you've optimized for wealth. Now we're moving into the real estate phase and the execution strategy. This is point number 9, the 5-year rule, and this might mean you don't sell at all right now. I teach clients a simple framework. If you don't plan to stay in the next house for at least 5 years, you're probably making an emotional decision, not a financial one. And it doesn't mean you have to live in it for 5 years. It just means you have to hold on to it for 5 years. Plenty of military personnel live in their home for 3, rent it out for 2 or more, and they become landlords. So why 5 years though? And it's because that's about how long it takes to break even on transaction costs. The realtor fees, the moving expenses, new home setup, you're all in for around 8 to 10% of your home's value. And on a $500,000 home right here in Colorado Springs, my hometown, that's $40,000 to $50,000 just to get out and get in. The home needs to appreciate by that much, or you need to save that much in reduced living costs just to break even. If you're over 65 and healthy and you plan to be in your home until you're 80, that's 15 years. You're doing well. The 5-year rule, it makes sense for your situation. But if you're 78 and your health is declining and you might need assisted living in 3 years, maybe you rent instead. Maybe you move in with family. Maybe you age in place and hire help. Here's the point. Real estate should serve your life plan, not the other way around. And sometimes the answer is not yet or not at all. That's why I say I'm a transition strategist first, because if the transition strategy says wait, we wait. Even if it means I don't get a commission this year, I want you to make the best decision for you and your situation. Number 10, remember this. Time in the market is better than timing the market. It's not the primary factor. Yes, you want a strong market to sell in. Inventory matters. However, make the decision and move forward is my recommendation. Because here's what I have observed. Families who wait for the perfect market, they often wait 3 years, 2 years, whatever it might be, and they miss that optimal time based on what their life and wealth goals and strategies are. The market is just one input to that, but it's not the only input. Your health timeline, that matters more. Your tax situation, that matters more. Your real estate planning, that matters more. If you're waiting 2 years for better market costs or conditions, look, it may never come, and then that could cost you that $75,000 in Medicare IRMA penalties. You don't actually come out ahead by waiting. Make the decision and put one foot in front of the other. Get the right advice so you can move forward in life. So by all means, factor in market conditions. Work with someone, me, someone else who knows your local market. But don't let market timing override life timing. Life comes first, wealth second, real estate comes third. And always remember it's in that order. And at least if you've gone through that process and you decide that now is not the right time to sell, you know why. You've made a purposeful decision, and that matters. Now, point 11, it's actually called right sizing, not downsizing. But here's where people mess up. And it's because when they are right sizing and they're from their current home and thinking about what that next one looks like, they start in the wrong room. Most people start the downsizing in the garage or the attic, the places with the most stuff. I don't recommend that at all. Start with the future space. Go to your new home or the type of home that you're targeting and measure everything. How big is that master closet? How many linear feet of kitchen cabinets? Where does furniture actually fit? Then come back to your house and make decisions based on what actually fits in the new space, not based on sentiment, not based on might need this someday, based on does this have a place in the new house? And it's a common mistake. You downsize too much and the new space feels empty and sad. Or you don't downsize enough and you're just as cluttered, but now you're paying to store that in the overflow or a storage unit. Here's the test though. If you haven't used something in 2 years, you don't need it in the new house. Doesn't matter if it was expensive or not. Doesn't matter if it was a gift. It doesn't serve your life today. It goes. And for furniture, measure your new spaces before you buy new furniture. I can't tell you how many times families bought a new couch before they moved and then it didn't fit through the door. Right sizing, that means your new home fits your current life, not your past life, not your imagined future life, your life today. And then lastly, thing 12, your systematic execution roadmap. This is where being a project management professional, me, actually matters. Here's the order of operations. Phase 1, identify your specific life transition. Which of the 12 Ds are you facing? What's driving this decision? Take 2 weeks just to name it clearly. Then phase 2, we're going to optimize for wealth. Schedule a meeting with your CPA and your state attorney or your CFP, and together, if possible, model out scenarios, capital gains timing, IRMA considerations, estate planning structures. Get a written plan. This takes 4 to 6 weeks minimum. And then phase 3, execute real estate strategy. Once you know when to sell based on wealth optimization, then you call a realtor, or in my case, I activate my nationwide referral network and connect you with someone who serves your area. But here's the critical part. We might decide you shouldn't sell right now. Maybe you wait a year. Maybe you convert to a rental. Maybe you gift it to your kids. Maybe stay put and age in place. My job is to get you the right answer for your situation, not to rush you into a transaction because I want a commission. What I'm trying to do is complement your life strategy. That's the difference between working with a transition strategist versus working with just a real estate agent. The transition strategist starts with your life, optimizes your wealth, and then figures out if real estate makes sense. The agent starts with, when do you want to list? Completely different approach, completely different outcomes. If you're finding this conversation beneficial, here's how we work together. First, we identify your specific life transition, whether it's retirement, health changes, empty nest, something else entirely. If you're an adult child watching this for your parents, but you're coming up on a career transition or PCS, look, all those are life transitions, and that's what we help people through. Second, we're going to optimize your wealth outcome by coordinating with your CPA, your attorney. I present concepts that I am very familiar with and have seen over time for you to consider. I equip you with the questions to ask so that way you can set your situation up for success. All that might mean timing the sale differently to avoid that Medicare spike, restructuring ownership to save $50,000 in taxes, or waiting another year to maximize your capital gains exclusions. And then third, that's when we execute the real estate strategy through my nationwide referral network. But here's the key. You might decide based on the inputs that you've received today that right now is not the right time to sell, but we still need a plan for it. I'm a transition strategist first, real estate professional second. If you're in Colorado Springs, I'm happy to help serve you. If you're elsewhere, again, I will connect you with a values-aligned individual. At the end of the day, my job is to get you the right answer, not the fast commission. And if that sounds like an approach you need, go to askweldonhobbs.com, book a free transition strategy call, or call me directly. I'm happy to have the conversation. You can also visit our website and find out more about us. I'm Weldon Hobbs. I'm a transition strategist, project management professional, certified financial coach, and real estate professional serving families nationwide through my referral network. I'm located right here in Colorado Springs and serve this incredible community, but I serve others across the nation, all through Team Hobbs Realty. I'm an Air Force Academy graduate, and I spent years leading teams of dozens to hundreds of people in the military. Now I help families navigate major life transitions because I believe the best real estate decisions start with understanding your life first, optimizing your wealth, and then, and only then, figuring out where real estate fits into that grand scheme. If this approach resonates with you, I encourage you hit that subscribe button to this channel. I create content on life transitions, wealth strategy, and real estate decisions for families navigating major challenges, and I publish it every single week. Remember, you started this video feeling overwhelmed. You should be ending it feeling empowered and at least knowing a little bit more about which questions to ask. You have a roadmap, you know the questions. Now go have those conversations with your family, your CPA, and your estate attorney. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.